The wrestling world just exploded with developments that nobody saw coming, and trust me when I say what's about to unfold will change everything you thought you knew about the current landscape of professional wrestling. What happens when two of the most destructive forces in the industry decide to unite against one of the most powerful managers in history, while a beloved champion might be heading down a path that could shock millions of fans worldwide, and a rising star faces a crisis that has the entire wrestling community holding their breath in concern? If you love wrestling drama and want to stay ahead of every shocking twist, then make sure you hit that subscribe button right now, because you won't want to miss a single update. The tension between Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed has been building for months now, with both men establishing themselves as absolute forces of destruction who show no mercy to anyone who stands in their way. Breakker has been on an absolute tear through the roster, proving that his legacy name means nothing compared to the havoc he creates with his own two hands. His matches have been nothing short of brutal showcases where opponents leave the ring battered and questioning their career choices. Reed, on the other hand, has been cementing his status as one of the most feared big men in modern wrestling history, with a moveset that defies physics and leaves audiences gasping in disbelief every single time he steps between those ropes. Now imagine these two powerhouses who have been circling each other like predators suddenly finding common ground in their shared animosity toward Paul Heyman. The legendary advocate has been pulling strings behind the scenes for decades and has managed some of the biggest names in wrestling history, but his current situation has put him directly in the crosshairs of these two monsters. Heyman's ability to manipulate situations and talk his way out of seemingly impossible scenarios has always been his greatest weapon, but what happens when words can't protect you from men who only understand violence and destruction? The reports coming out suggest that Breakker and Reed have formed an alliance that nobody predicted, and their target is crystal clear. Heyman has been operating with a sense of security, thinking his association with certain top-tier talent would shield him from any real danger, but these two men couldn't care less about politics or alliances. They see Heyman as someone who represents everything they despise about the corporate structure of wrestling, where talk matters more than action and manipulation trumps domination. Their plan apparently involves making a statement so emphatic that nobody will ever question their position in the hierarchy again. What makes this situation even more explosive is the timing, because Heyman currently finds himself in a vulnerable position without the full protection he once enjoyed. His usual safety nets seem to be compromised, and the sharks in the water have picked up the scent of blood. Breakker and Reed aren't the types to make empty threats or engage in lengthy verbal sparring sessions. They're men of action who prefer to let their physicality do all the talking, and the wrestling world knows that when these two set their sights on someone, that person's world is about to be turned completely upside down. The backstage environment has reportedly become increasingly tense, with various superstars choosing sides and trying to figure out how this conflict will affect their own positions. Some veterans are advising caution, suggesting that going after someone like Heyman could have long-term consequences that extend beyond just physical confrontations. Others are quietly supporting the aggressive stance taken by Breakker and Reed, believing that the old guard needs to be shaken up by a new generation that refuses to play by outdated rules. The locker room is essentially divided between those who respect tradition and those who want to burn it all down and rebuild from scratch. Meanwhile, in what could be the most shocking development of the year, there are growing whispers that Cody Rhodes might be heading toward a heel turn that would absolutely devastate his massive fan base. Rhodes has been the ultimate babyface story in modern wrestling, with his journey from leaving WWE to conquering the independent scene to returning and finally capturing the championship that eluded his legendary father. His connection with the audience has been based on authenticity and the belief that he represents the everyman who refuses to give up on his dreams no matter how many obstacles appear in his path. But recent behavioral patterns and subtle shifts in his presentation have industry insiders speculating that something dark is brewing beneath that polished exterior. The question isn't whether Rhodes could pull off a heel turn, because his talent level makes that a given, but rather whether the company would actually pull the trigger on such a risky move when he's currently positioned as the face of the entire brand. His merchandise sales are through the roof, and his segments consistently draw the highest ratings, which makes any dramatic character change a massive gamble that could either reinvigorate his character or alienate the core audience that's been supporting him through thick and thin. The potential reasoning behind such a drastic change could stem from creative frustration or a desire to explore different facets of his personality that can't be expressed within the constraints of a heroic character. Rhodes is a student of wrestling psychology who understands that the most memorable runs often come from characters who aren't afraid to make audiences uncomfortable and challenge their preconceived notions. Some of the greatest performers in history made their biggest impact when they shocked the world by betraying everything their character once stood for, and Rhodes might be positioning himself for exactly that kind of transformative moment. The clues have apparently been there for those paying close attention, with certain promos containing subtle hints of arrogance and entitlement that don't quite fit the humble warrior narrative he's been portraying. His interactions with other babyfaces have occasionally featured an edge that suggests underlying tension, and his willingness to bend rules during matches has increased incrementally over recent weeks. These could all be coincidences, or they could be carefully planted seeds designed to make the eventual turn feel earned rather than arbitrary. Wrestling fans have been burned before by rushed character changes that made no sense, so the company would need to execute this perfectly if they're truly going down this road. What adds another layer to this situation is how a heel Rhodes would fundamentally alter the entire landscape of the main event scene. Suddenly every dynamic changes and feuds that seemed impossible become viable options while allies become potential targets. The psychological impact on the audience would be profound because Rhodes represents hope and determination to so many fans who see their own struggles reflected in his story. Taking that away and replacing it with betrayal and selfishness could generate nuclear heat that makes him the most despised villain in the company, or it could backfire spectacularly if fans simply reject the premise and refuse to boo him regardless of his actions. On a much more serious and somber note, the wrestling community has come together in an extraordinary display of support for Jacob Fatu, who is currently facing a personal crisis that has people sending prayers and positive energy his way. Fatu has emerged as one of the most exciting and physically impressive performers of his generation, with a unique combination of size, agility and charisma that makes him must-see television every single time he appears. His rise through the ranks has been meteoric, and many insiders believe he's destined for superstardom at the highest levels of the industry. The exact nature of his situation hasn't been fully disclosed out of respect for his privacy, but reports indicate that he's dealing with something significant enough that the entire wrestling world has paused to show support. Social media has been flooded with messages from fellow wrestlers, fans and industry figures, all expressing their hope that Fatu and his family find strength during this difficult time. The wrestling business can be brutal and unforgiving, but moments like these reveal the genuine bonds and community that exists beneath all the scripted rivalries and manufactured drama. Fatu's absence from programming will undoubtedly be felt because his presence adds a special element that's difficult to replicate. His matches have consistently been highlights of every show he's been part of, and his character work has shown remarkable depth for someone relatively early in his main roster run. The company will need to navigate his absence carefully while also giving him all the time and space he needs to handle his personal matters without any pressure to return before he's ready. Wrestling will always be there, but family and personal well-being must always take priority over entertainment and storylines. The outpouring of support demonstrates how much respect Fatu has earned from his peers in a relatively short amount of time. Veterans who normally keep their distance from newer talent have gone out of their way to publicly express their admiration and concern, which speaks volumes about the kind of person he is behind the character. The wrestling business has a long memory, and the way the community has rallied around Fatu during this challenging period will not be forgotten. When he eventually returns, the reception he receives will likely be overwhelming because fans and wrestlers alike will want to show him how much he means to them. These three major stories represent the full spectrum of what makes wrestling such a compelling and emotionally complex form of entertainment. You have the pure aggression and chaos of Breaker and Reed targeting Heyman, which promises physical destruction and power plays. Then there's the potential psychological warfare of a Rhodes heel turn, which would challenge everything fans believe about storytelling and character evolution. Finally, there's the very real human element of Fatu's situation, which reminds everyone that the people behind these larger-than-life characters face the same struggles and hardships as everyone else. The convergence of these storylines creates an atmosphere of unpredictability where anything seems possible and no outcome can be taken for granted. Wrestling thrives on these moments of genuine uncertainty, where the line between scripted entertainment and real-life emotion becomes beautifully blurred. Fans invest so much of themselves into following these stories and performers because deep down everyone understands that truth and fiction are constantly dancing together, creating something that transcends simple sport or simple theater. As these situations continue to develop, the wrestling world will be watching with intense scrutiny to see how each chapter unfolds. Will Breaker and Reed successfully make an example out of Heyman, or will the crafty advocate find a way to turn the tables on his would-be attackers? Will Cody Rhodes actually complete a heel turn that nobody wants to believe could happen, or will he remain the heroic figure that so many fans desperately need him to be? And most importantly, everyone will be hoping and praying that Jacob Fatu finds peace, resolution and healing for whatever challenge he's currently facing, so that he can eventually return to doing what he loves in front of audiences who appreciate his incredible talent. The next few weeks and months promise to deliver drama, excitement and emotion on a scale that wrestling fans live for, and the ripple effects from these interconnected stories will likely shape the industry for years to come. Every twist will be analyzed, every decision will be debated, and every outcome will be remembered as part of wrestling's ever-evolving tapestry of triumph, tragedy and theatrical brilliance. This is exactly why millions of people around the world remain obsessed with professional wrestling, because nowhere else can you find this unique combination of athletic achievement, dramatic storytelling and genuine human connection, all wrapped up in one unpredictable package. Don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on every breaking development in the wrestling world, because things are moving faster than ever and you won't want to miss a single moment of the chaos and excitement that's about to unfold.